Hi, and welcome. I'm Donna Dyer, and today we're going to talk about resiliency, how to confidently and proactively handle life's challenges. I'm a longtime parent at the Pegasus School. I have two children. Both started when they were 3 years old. My daughter started in 2004, and she's in high school now, and my son's in the 5th grade. And I'm inspired every day, as you probably are, by the Pegasus community. Let me share with you a little bit about myself. I'm a regional marketing manager, and I work with an organization that helps financial cooperatives. I'm also a personal energy coach. And by personal energy coach, I mean this: I help successful, aware people confidently step into what's next for them. For fun, I enjoy hiking, cooking, and exploring with my kids, anything that helps us engage without the distractions of electronics. Today we're going to talk about, I have two outcomes. And the first is to talk about how you can become even more resilient. The second is to provide some resources that can take that even one step further. So why is resiliency so important? We all know that life's going to throw us curveballs. What is at the heart of our ability to bounce back? Let me share with you a quick story. My daughter, Jenna, graduated recently, and she truly blossomed here. She developed a love of speaking, a confidence in herself. She developed a love of writing and even grammar. Everything about her Pegasus experience was amazing. She went to high school in the fall, and that transition into high school was a real challenge for Jenna. She was overwhelmed by a sea of 3,000 teenagers, and her struggle really helped me understand how important resiliency really is. What I mean by resiliency is the ability to recover from setbacks. This is a trait that has people be able to bounce back because when setbacks occur, they don't take what's happening personally. When you take something personally, it weighs on you so much more than if you can filter that through and know that there's a way to move forward. And so what we'll talk about today are 7 different ways that you can look at what's happening to you so that you can consciously move forward. And I call those 7 ways the resiliency factor. What's your resiliency factor? Here's a powerful equation. So your resiliency factor times your challenge equals your outcome. So your resiliency factor is measured in 7 levels, and we'll talk about those today. Your challenge can be measured on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being a mild annoyance and 10 being like a life-changing crisis. So if your resiliency factor is a 1 and your challenge is a 10, your outcome is only a 10. But if your resiliency factor, if you're more resilient, is a 7 and your challenge is a 10, your outcome is a 70. You're able to bounce back faster. So using that context, we'll go through what that might look like. Your resiliency factor is a choice. You get to choose, and we'll lay out a roadmap today that helps you make those choices about how to be more resilient. So we'll start with level 1, hopelessness. So hopelessness is really one of the loneliest places to be. It really has you feeling that you are at the mercy of your circumstances. What's important to know in that place is that you can reach out for help. And so many times we forget that people genuinely want to help. This happened with my daughter when she would come home from school during the fall. Sometimes she would come home after a day at school, after a day of feeling so isolated, and she would just ask me to sit with her. And just sitting together helped relieve that feeling of isolation, and then she was able to move forward. So that is one of the primary ways, if you find yourself in that space, to be able to move forward into a place that's more resilient. The second level of resilience is frustration and anger. So anger and frustration is really a more powerful place than hopelessness. You can even feel it. You have more energy, but you're still at the effect of your circumstances. So what's important when you're feeling anger and frustration, which sometimes we do as parents, is to channel that anger into moving forward. Sometimes we feel like that feeling is I'm not going to take it anymore, and I'm going to do something about it. And that's that feeling of how you can get through that anger. So instead of focusing on the problem, being able to channel it into what's next. The third level of resiliency is rationalization. And sometimes when we're faced with a setback, we find ourselves rationalizing and trying to come up with options. It's a sorting out phase, and this is really a more powerful place than hopelessness or anger because we're a little bit more detached. And with that, we can have more options available. It's at this level that we find coping mechanisms, which is great. And we can open up to new perspectives that help us move forward into whatever is next. So the fourth level of resilience is compassion. And so many of us as parents are familiar with compassion. It is really the tendency to see what's going on and to step back and take care of others and see how they're impacted with the situation. What's important at this level of compassion is to remember to have compassion for ourselves. It's worth repeating. We have to have compassion for ourselves. And I'm reminded of the instructions that they give you on an airplane. You know, if there's a sudden loss in cabin pressure, be sure to put your own oxygen mask on first before helping the person next to you. So this is just like that. The fifth level of resiliency is opportunity. Shakespeare said, "Sweet are the uses of adversity." So you've heard that in every challenge there is an opportunity. And that is really true if you know how to take advantage of that. So what I'm talking about here is different than making lemonade out of lemons. It's really being truly as interested in what doesn't go right as what does. Really finding and getting curious about what there is to learn from a situation. Again, so we can take that step forward. Opportunity, this level 5, is a really resilient place to be. And some of the most successful people operate from this level. What's really great to notice is as you're moving forward to be able to see what might be another perspective to look at so that you can become more resilient. So at level 6, the next level is synthesis. And what synthesis is that feeling of connection with everyone and everything. It's that feeling that we're really in the flow or in the groove. You've probably read that book about flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. And it really talks about how, flow is really that intrinsic motivation that helps us move forward. And that feeling is, a really powerful place of resilience. And it's something to really look for when you're faced with something and if you might be in the place to really move into that groove. Finally, level 7 is detached observation. So at this level, we're really consciously being able to choose right thinking, right feeling, and right action. It's the ability to choose on purpose how we're going to respond to a situation and choose any of the levels that might be appropriate. And so you might be thinking, well, why would someone choose a level 2 as an appropriate level of resilience when they could be at a 7? And here's an example. Think of a teacher. You may be faced with a rowdy classroom, and you might need to be stern with the classroom in order to be taken seriously. From level 7, you can choose that stern way of being without feeling the frustration. So you get all the power of level 2 without any of the side effects or the consequences of feeling angry or frustrated. And that's the power of level 7. It's really more about the ability to respond rather than react. When we get medication, we don't want to react to it, right? That could be a problem. We want to be able to respond. And that's what's available when you're looking at, the optimal level of resilience. So now that we've gone through the 7 levels of resiliency, why is that important? And the reason that it's important is because it's a roadmap, and with the awareness about how you might choose to be more resilient, you get to choose. And it's nice to know that when someone is angry, even our children, when they're angry, that's actually more resilient than a place of hopelessness. It's nice to know that when you're feeling overwhelmed because you're taking care of everybody else and forgot about yourself, that there's a step forward. You can take care of yourself, or you can look at what the opportunity is. And just knowing that there's new levels of resilience to step into helps make us more resilient. Okay, let me share with you a secret. There's another way to become more resilient, and we've all experienced it. And I'll bring you back to the equation. Your resiliency factor times your challenge equals your outcome. So what transforms it are the resources that we bring to ourselves. So, in an advanced equation, you can think of it as your resiliency factor, which might be a 7, times your challenge, which say might be a 10, times a resource multiplier, which is a 10. So you have an outcome of 700 rather than 70, and you can just see how that makes you more resilient. And by a resource multiplier, I mean, things like a roadmap, like being able to know where to, something new to choose, anything that gives us more perspective. It might even be the counsel of a wise friend or a spouse or a coach. So I've included links to some resource multipliers and some resources at the bottom of the video. And I also have put together a summary of some of the things we've talked about today. That's a little report called The 7 Levels of Resilience. So it's a great way to just look back and be able to see where you might move in any area that you might want to be more resilient. So that's included at the bottom of the page. Thank you for being such a great group.